Ambassador clicked his mandibles nervously as he approached the towering obsidian doors of the High Council chamber. They had served as diplomatic liaisons for over 3 centuries, yet today's announcement would test even his seasoned composure. Behind those doors waited representatives from 47 different species, each commanding fleets that could reduce star systems to cosmic dust. The chamber itself was a marvel of engineering, suspended in zero gravity at the heart of Nexus Prime, the galactic capital. Crystalline formations jutted from every surface, each one containing the atmospheric requirements for different species. His own methane-rich environment swirled around him in a personal bubble as he took his position at the central podium. Esteemed members of the Galactic Council, his voice resonated through universal translators, reaching every delegate in their native tongue. We gather today to address the growing concern that threatens our established order. High Counselor, imposing whose crystalline exoskeleton reflected the chamber's ambient light, gestured with one of his 4 arms. Speak plainly, Ambassador. The humans have been expanding their territory at an unprecedented rate. Their colonies now number in the thousands. Santeni twitched as he accessed the holographic display. 3-dimensional star charts materialized around them, showing the rapid expansion of human settlements across previously unclaimed sectors. Red markers indicated human colonies, and their proliferation across the spiral arm was undeniable. In the past 50 standard years, continued, humanity has established 2,847 permanent settlements. They have terraformed 312 previously uninhabitable worlds and constructed 156 artificial habitats. Their population has increased by 340% during this period. A collective murmur arose from the assembled delegates. The Ani representative, her slug-like form undulating with agitation, spoke through her translation matrix. These numbers are impossible. No species achieves such expansion without massive resource depletion or population collapse. Yet the humans continue to thrive, replied Counselor of the Epsilon Collective, his robotic form clicking mechanically. Our intelligence reports indicate their technological advancement has accelerated beyond all predictive models. Nodded grimly. Indeed, they have developed faster-than-light communication networks, automated construction systems, and most concerning of all, self-replicating industrial platforms. Their capacity for resource extraction and utilization exceeds anything we have previously encountered. The chamber fell silent except for the ambient hum of life support systems. Each delegate processed this information through their species' unique perspective on galactic politics. For the Council had maintained balance through careful regulation of expansion, technology sharing, and resource allocation. Humanity's rapid growth threatened to upset this delicate equilibrium. High Counselor's exoskeleton shifted color to a deeper blue, indicating serious contemplation. What of their military capabilities? Limited by conventional standards, replied, though his mandibles betrayed his uncertainty. Their fleets consist primarily of exploration and colony support vessels. We have detected minimal weapons development and no indication of aggressive intent toward established territories. Minimal weapons development? The question came from General, the military commander whose reptilian features remained impassive. Our scouts report human vessels carrying unusual defensive systems, energy barriers of unknown configuration and propulsion methods that defy our understanding of physics. Accessed additional files, his expression growing more troubled. The humans refer to these as experimental technologies. They claim these developments are purely for civilian applications, improved radiation shielding, more efficient transportation, enhanced life support systems. Civilian applications that coincidentally provide military advantages, General observed. Their colony ships now move faster than our fastest military vessels. Their settlements appear impregnable to conventional assault. These developments cannot be coincidental. Counselor of the Consortium spoke, her melodious voice carrying an undertone of concern. Perhaps we should consider diplomatic engagement. The humans have shown willingness to trade and communicate. They have not violated any territorial agreements or shown hostility toward our established colonies. Diplomatic engagement with a species expanding at such rates is futile, countered. They will overwhelm our territories through sheer numbers alone. Their technological advancement suggests they may soon surpass our capabilities entirely. The debate continued for hours, with delegates arguing various approaches to the human situation. Some advocated for immediate military action, others for diplomatic solutions, and still others for careful observation and containment. Throughout the discussion, one fact remained undeniable. Humanity's expansion showed no signs of slowing. Ambassador called for order as tensions in the chamber escalated. Esteemed delegates, we must reach a consensus. Our intelligence networks indicate that human expansion will bring them into contact with established territories within the next 20 standard years. We cannot afford to delay our response. General stood, his massive frame commanding attention. The Empire proposes immediate military intervention. We have identified 17 key human colonies that serve as expansion hubs. Coordinated strikes against these targets would cripple their growth and force them to negotiate from a position of weakness. You suggest warfare against a species that has shown no aggression. Counselor's voice carried clear disapproval. The consortium cannot support such action without just cause. Their expansion itself is the just cause, interjected. No species has the right to unlimited growth at the expense of galactic stability. The Council has a responsibility to maintain order. Observe the growing division among the delegates. The chamber split along predictable lines, militaristic species favoring aggressive action, diplomatic species advocating peaceful solutions, and others remaining uncommitted. Yet beneath these surface disagreements lay a deeper concern that none wished to voice openly: fear. Fear of humanity's unprecedented growth. Fear of their inexplicable technological advancement. Fear of their apparent disregard for limitations that had constrained other species for. This fear drove the debate toward increasingly extreme positions. Perhaps, suggested carefully, we should examine what makes human expansion so uniquely problematic. Other species have experienced periods of rapid growth. Not like this, General growled. The Empire expanded rapidly, but we faced resource constraints, population pressures, technological limitations. The humans seem immune to these natural barriers. Counselor's mechanical voice added precision to the discussion. Epsilon collective analysis indicates human colonies maintain 97% self-sufficiency within 5 standard years of establishment. This efficiency rate exceeds theoretical maximums by significant margins. How is such efficiency possible? Asked the ONI representative. Accessed classified intelligence reports, his mandibles clicking nervously. Human social organization appears fundamentally different from established patterns. They demonstrate unprecedented cooperation between colony groups, rapid adaptation to local conditions, and most remarkably, they seem to thrive on challenges that would devastate other species. Elaborate on this thriving, demanded. Their colonies in harsh environments show faster development than those in optimal conditions. Worlds with dangerous wildlife, extreme weather, or limited resources become their most productive settlements. It defies conventional colonization theory. The chamber erupted in alarmed chittering, mechanical clicks, and telepathic interference as delegates struggled to process this information. A species that became stronger when faced with adversity violated fundamental assumptions about galactic civilization. General's voice cut through the chaos. This confirms the threat level. A species that grows stronger under pressure will not respond to traditional diplomatic constraints. Military action becomes not just advisable but necessary for galactic security. You advocate genocide? Counselor accused. I advocate survival, replied coldly. The humans represent an existential threat to established order. They must be contained or eliminated before they become too powerful to stop. Ambassador called for formal voting procedures. The chamber's atmosphere grew heavy as delegates considered the momentous decision before them. The holographic displays showed human colonies scattered across the galaxy like seeds waiting to sprout into something unprecedented. High Counselor spoke with the authority of his ancient office. The Council will vote on Resolution 7749, authorization of military action against human colonial expansion. Those in favor. 26 delegates registered approval through their various communication methods. The Chamber's quantum processors recorded each decision with absolute precision. Those opposed. 15 delegates voted against the resolution, their disagreement noted in the official record. Abstentions. 6 delegates chose not to participate in the decision, their neutrality preserved in the face of galactic upheaval. Exoskeleton shifted to a deep purple, indicating formal announcement. Resolution 7749 passes by majority vote. The Galactic Council hereby authorizes coordinated military action to contain human expansion and enforce territorial boundaries. General will coordinate fleet movements. The chamber began to empty as delegates returned to their respective territories to prepare for war. Yet as they departed, none noticed the small observation probe that had been monitoring their proceedings from beyond the station's detection range. The probe's advanced sensors had recorded every word, every decision, every tactical detail discussed in the supposedly secure chamber. Deep in human space, on a planet called Earth, the probe's transmission reached its destination. In a nondescript building in Geneva, analysts studied the intercepted intelligence with expressions ranging from concern to grim satisfaction. Director Sarah reviewed the translation matrices one final time before reaching for her secure communicator. Admiral, the Council just voted for military action, 26-15 with 6 abstentions, coordinating the fleet movements. Admiral's voice carried across light years instantly through quantum entanglement communication. Understood, Director. How long until their fleets reach our outer colonies? Ships will need approximately 43 days to reach the first target systems. Assuming they coordinate with and Ani forces, we're looking at a 3-pronged assault beginning in 7 weeks. More than enough time, replied. Are we proceeding with Protocol 7? Director paused, considering the implications. Protocol 7 represented humanity's most carefully guarded secret, a contingency plan developed in absolute secrecy over the past 30 years. The Council's vote had just triggered a response they could never have anticipated. Affirmative, Admiral. Initiate Protocol 7, full authorization. Across human space, hidden facilities began activating systems that had remained dormant for decades. Automated factories started producing technologies the Council believed didn't exist. Defense networks that had been disguised as communication relays began reconfiguring for their true purpose. The Galactic Council had declared war on humanity, believing they faced a rapidly expanding but relatively primitive species. They were about to discover the difference between human expansion and human preparation. In the depths of space, monitoring stations that had been dismissed as simple research outposts began tracking every ship movement in Council territory. Data flowed through quantum networks to central command centers, where human strategists planned their response to the coming assault. The Council had made their decision based on fear of human expansion. They were about to learn that humanity's true strength had never been in their colonies, their technology, or their numbers. Humanity's greatest advantage was something the Council had never encountered in their of galactic politics: the ability to appear weak while preparing for war, to seem unprepared while holding overwhelming advantages, and to respond to aggression with calculated precision that would redefine the balance of power in the galaxy. The war was about to begin, but the Council had no idea they had already lost the initiative. Humanity's response would demonstrate that their expansion had been merely the visible portion of a much larger strategy, one designed to ensure that when conflict came, it would be fought on humanity's terms. Protocol 7 was now active, and the galaxy would never be the same. General stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Destiny's Edge, watching the final preparations for humanity's destruction. Around him, the largest fleet ever assembled by the Galactic Council moved through space with lethal precision. 347 warships from 12 different species, each vessel bristling with weapons capable of reducing planets to molten slag. The General's reptilian features remained impassive as tactical displays updated every few seconds. Human colonies appeared as red dots scattered across 3-dimensional star maps, their locations marked by months of careful intelligence gathering. 17 primary targets had been selected for simultaneous assault, chosen specifically to cripple humanity's expansion capabilities. Fleet Commander reports all vessels in position, announced his communications officer, a young whose scales had not yet darkened with age and experience. Acknowledged status of Ani forces. Admiral confirms readiness. Her forces are maintaining position at the outer perimeter of human space, ready to intercept any vessels attempting to escape. Nodded with satisfaction. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Overwhelming force applied simultaneously across multiple targets, preventing human forces from coordinating any meaningful defense. Intelligence reports indicated that human military vessels were scattered thinly across their colonies, primarily focused on exploration and colony defense rather than large-scale warfare. "Sir," the tactical officer called out, "we're receiving final authorization from Nexus Prime. The Council has given clearance to proceed with Operation Stellar Cleansing." The name itself carried symbolic weight. The Council viewed humanity as a contamination that threatened galactic purity, a species that had grown beyond acceptable parameters. Their elimination would restore the natural order that had existed for. "Signal all fleet commanders," ordered. "Begin approach to target systems. Maintain communication silence until engagement begins." Across the vast fleet, ships began their final approach to human space. Each vessel represented the pinnacle of their species' military technology. Crystalline warships could focus stellar energy into devastating beam weapons. Bioship carried swarms of living missiles that adapted to enemy defenses in real time. Heavy cruisers mounted kinetic bombardment systems capable of cracking planetary crusts. Yet as the fleet advanced, subtle anomalies began appearing on their sensors. Human colonies that should have been bustling with activity showed unusual energy signatures. Transport routes that normally carried heavy traffic seemed strangely empty. Most concerning, the supposedly primitive human defensive systems were displaying readings that conventional understanding. Fleet Commander contacted through encrypted channels, her crystalline voice carrying undertones of confusion. "General, my sensors are detecting gravitational anomalies around several target systems. The readings don't match our intelligence reports." "Elaborate," demanded, his attention focusing on the tactical displays. "Human colonies in the 442 system are showing gravitational distortions consistent with massive stellar engineering projects. Our intelligence indicated no such construction activity." Before could respond, Admiral's urgent transmission interrupted the conversation. "All fleet commanders, I'm detecting massive energy buildups across human space. These readings are unlike anything in our databases." The tactical displays began updating with new information, and what they showed sent chills through even the most experienced military officers. Human colonies weren't just showing defensive preparations, they were revealing technologies that shouldn't exist. Energy readings from supposedly simple agricultural worlds indicated power generation capabilities that exceeded small suns. Gravitational anomalies suggested the presence of spatial manipulation technology far beyond anything the Council possessed. Most alarming, quantum interference patterns indicated that human communication networks operated on principles that violated established physics. "This is impossible," muttered the tactical officer. "These readings suggest the humans have been masking their true technological capabilities." His mind raced through the implications. If humanity had been concealing advanced technology, then every assumption underlying the invasion plan was fundamentally flawed. The fleet had been assembled to overwhelm a primitive species, not to engage with potentially superior technology. "Continue approach," he ordered, despite growing uncertainty. "Maintain formation and prepare for unexpected resistance." The fleet pressed forward, but as they neared the first target system, reality began revealing just how thoroughly the Council had miscalculated. The human colony orbiting B appeared on their sensors not as a collection of simple habitats, but as an integrated defensive network that spanned the entire system. What had been dismissed as communication satellites revealed themselves as sensor platforms capable of tracking objects across interstellar distances. Mining facilities that supposedly extracted simple resources were actually manufacturing centers producing technologies that didn't appear in any Council database. Most shocking of all, the human population centers themselves were revealing capabilities that suggested they had never been vulnerable civilian targets. "Sir," the communications officer reported with barely concealed fear, "we're receiving a transmission from the system. It's addressed to General personally." "Impossible. Our approach should remain undetected for another 6 hours." "The transmission is coming through quantum entanglement channels. They're using instantaneous communication across interstellar distances." felt his blood temperature drop several degrees. Quantum entanglement communication was theoretical technology that even the most advanced council species had been unable to develop. If humans possessed such capabilities, it meant their technological advancement far exceeded intelligence estimates. "Put the transmission through," he ordered, dreading what they might hear. The activated, revealing a human figure in what appeared to be a standard military uniform. The individual looked surprisingly calm for someone whose colony was about to be destroyed by the largest fleet in galactic history. "General," the human said in perfect, "I am Admiral Sarah of the Human Defense Force. I understand you're approaching our territories with hostile intent." The casual tone sent ripples of unease through the bridge crew. Admiral spoke as if discussing routine patrol schedules rather than imminent warfare. "Admiral," replied, attempting to project authority despite his growing uncertainty, "you are speaking to the commanding general of the Council fleet. Your species has violated galactic territorial agreements through unauthorized expansion. Surrender immediately, and your colonies will be spared unnecessary destruction." Admiral's expression didn't change. "General, I think there may be some misunderstanding about the nature of our expansion and our defensive capabilities. Before you proceed with your attack, I should inform you that we've been monitoring Council military preparations for some time." "Monitoring our preparations? That's impossible. Our planning was conducted under absolute secrecy." "Actually," continued with the same unsettling calm, "we have complete recordings of your Council sessions. Ambassador's report was quite thorough, though it contained several significant intelligence failures." Felt the deck beneath his feet suddenly seem less stable. If humans had been monitoring Council communications, they would have known about the planned attack for weeks. That knowledge would have allowed them to prepare responses and potentially set traps. "You're bluffing," he declared, though uncertainty crept into his voice. Admiral gestured, and the transmission expanded to show what appeared to be the interior of the Council chamber. Watched in horror as his own words from the planning session played back with perfect clarity. "The humans represent an existential threat to established order," his recorded voice declared. "They must be contained or eliminated before they become too powerful to stop." The recording continued, showing details of fleet positions, attack timings, and tactical objectives. Every secret the Council believed they possessed had been compromised from the beginning. Howe whispered, his military composure finally cracking. "General," Admiral said gently, "you've made the same error that many species make when encountering humanity for the first time. You assumed that what you could observe represented the full extent of our capabilities." As if responding to some unseen signal, space around the Council fleet began revealing its secrets. Gravitational distortions that had been dismissed as natural phenomena suddenly resolved into massive defensive installations. Energy readings that seemed like background radiation coalesced into weapon systems of unprecedented power. Most terrifying of all, empty space itself began revealing hidden human vessels. Ships that had been undetectable moments before materialized around the Council fleet in perfect formation. These weren't the simple exploration and colony support vessels described in intelligence reports. These were warships whose design principles seemed to violate everything the Council understood about military engineering. Admiral managed to say, "Your defensive capabilities are impressive. However, this fleet represents the combined military might of 12 species. We outnumber your visible vessels by more than 10 to 1. "Visible vessels," repeated with what might have been amusement. "General, you're thinking about this problem in conventional terms. Human military doctrine doesn't rely primarily on ship-to-ship combat." Before could ask what that meant, his tactical displays began showing impossible readings. The gravitational fields around human colonies weren't just defensive installations. They were massive spatial manipulation systems capable of redirecting the laws of physics themselves. Weapons fire that should have traveled in straight lines curved through space like light bending around massive stellar objects. Kinetic projectiles that should have maintained constant velocity suddenly accelerated or decelerated according to human tactical requirements. Energy beams that should have dissipated over distance instead focused and intensified as they approached their targets. "This is impossible," the tactical officer reported, his voice barely above a whisper. They're manipulating fundamental forces in real time. Admiral's voice continued through the chaos of revelation. General, humanity has spent the last 50 years preparing for this exact scenario. Every colony you observed, every expansion project you monitored, every technological development you dismissed as civilian applications. All of it was designed to create the most comprehensive defensive network in galactic history. The truth hit with devastating clarity. Humanity hadn't been expanding despite the threat of Council intervention. They had been expanding because they knew intervention was inevitable. Every colony had been positioned strategically, every technological development had been planned with warfare in mind, every diplomatic interaction had been designed to gather intelligence while projecting weakness. "You've been manipulating us from the beginning," he realized. "Not manipulating, General, preparing. The Council operates under the assumption that territorial expansion equals aggressive intent. Humanity operates under the assumption that survival requires the ability to defend against inevitable aggression." Around the fleet, space itself seemed to be turning against them. Human defensive systems weren't just technologically advanced. They represented a fundamentally different approach to warfare. Instead of building larger ships or more powerful weapons, humanity had learned to control the battlefield environment itself. Ships that tried to maneuver found their navigation systems disrupted by localized gravitational anomalies. Weapons that attempted to target human installations discovered that their targeting data was being subtly modified in real time. Communication systems designed to coordinate fleet actions encountered interference patterns that suggested human quantum technology could literally intercept thoughts before they became actions. "Admiral," said, his voice carrying the weight of defeat, "what are your terms?" "Terms," replied. "General, you seem to misunderstand the situation. This isn't a negotiation. This is a demonstration." As if responding to her words, every human installation across the target systems simultaneously activated technologies that had remained hidden for decades. Defensive barriers that could deflect stellar-level energy discharges materialized around colonies. Weapon systems that drew power directly from quantum vacuum fluctuations began charging with energy levels that exceeded small supernovas. Most shocking of all, the human colonies themselves began moving. Entire planets equipped with propulsion systems that operated beyond the Council's understanding of physics started repositioning themselves for optimal defensive configurations. "The Council declared war on humanity," Admiral continued, "based on the assumption that our expansion represented a threat to galactic stability. You were partially correct. Our expansion does represent a change to the established order. However, you failed to understand the nature of that change." Fleet Commander's panicked transmission reached through increasingly unreliable communication channels. "General, my ships are experiencing complete system failures. Human technology is somehow interfacing directly with our computer systems." "All ships," broadcast desperately, "initiate emergency withdrawal protocols. Fall back to minimum safe distance." But as the fleet attempted to retreat, they discovered that human defensive capabilities extended far beyond their star systems. Space itself seemed to resist their movement, as if humanity had learned to manipulate the fundamental structure of spacetime to create invisible barriers. "General," Admiral's voice remained calm despite the chaos surrounding the fleet, "before you attempt to leave, there's something else you should understand about human expansion. Those 2,847 colonies your intelligence identified. They represent approximately 12% of our actual territorial presence." The number hit like a physical blow. If the observed colonies represented only a fraction of human expansion, then humanity had achieved a level of galactic presence that dwarfed every other species combined. "The Council has spent centuries maintaining balance through careful regulation and territorial agreements," continued. "Humanity has spent the last 50 years learning to defend ourselves against exactly that kind of systematic oppression. Your attack just proved that our preparations were necessary." As the Council fleet struggled to escape the increasingly hostile space around human territories, Admiral made one final statement that would echo through galactic history. "The Council declared war on humanity, believing you understood our capabilities. You were wrong. This demonstration represents approximately 3% of our actual defensive capacity. We suggest you reconsider your approach to human expansion." The transmission ended, leaving General and his fleet trapped in space that no longer obeyed conventional physics, facing an enemy that had spent decades preparing for exactly this moment. The war was far from over, but the balance of power had shifted so dramatically that the Council's assumptions about galactic civilization lay in ruins around them. Humanity's response to the Council's declaration had revealed the most terrifying truth in galactic history. They had never been the primitive, expanding species the Council believed them to be. They were something far more dangerous, a species that had learned to hide their true strength while preparing for inevitable conflict. The question now was whether the Council could survive long enough to understand just how thoroughly they had miscalculated humanity's true nature. Ambassador floated in his damaged life pod, watching the debris field that had once been the Council's most powerful fleet drift past in the cold silence of space. 3 days had passed since Admiral's demonstration, and the scattered remnants of 347 warships told a story that would reshape galactic politics forever. His emergency beacon pulsed weakly, broadcasting distress signals that seemed pathetically primitive compared to the quantum technologies humanity had revealed. Around him, other survivors drifted in similar pods, their various species unified in shocked disbelief at what they had witnessed. The rescue came not from Council forces, but from a human vessel that materialized out of what had appeared to be empty space. The ship's design conventional understanding. Its hull seemed to bend light around itself, creating optical illusions that made it difficult to determine its actual size or configuration. "Ambassador," came a voice through his pod's communication system, "this is Captain of the UHS Diplomatic Resolution. We're here to provide assistance and facilitate discussions." The irony of the ship's name wasn't lost on the diplomat. Humanity was offering rescue and diplomacy after demonstrating the complete obsolescence of Council military power. As his pod was brought aboard the human vessel, prepared himself for negotiations unlike any in his centuries of diplomatic experience. The ship's interior contradicted every assumption about human technology. The corridors seemed to extend beyond their physical dimensions, creating spaces that were somehow larger inside than outside. Gravity maintained perfect consistency despite the absence of rotating sections or artificial gravity generators. Most disturbing of all, the ship's computer systems responded to verbal commands in dozens of languages, including some that weren't in any Council database. Captain met him in what appeared to be a standard conference room, though noticed that the walls displayed real-time views of space that shifted perspective based on his viewing angle. The human officer appeared relaxed, wearing a simple uniform that showed no signs of the battle that had just concluded. "Ambassador," Captain said, gesturing to a chair that automatically adjusted to accommodate's physiology, "I understand this situation has been traumatic for Council forces. We want to assure you that all survivors will be treated according to the highest diplomatic standards." His mandibles clicked nervously as he settled into the perfectly comfortable chair. "Captain, I must ask directly, was Admiral's demonstration truly only 3% of human defensive capability?" The captain's expression grew thoughtful. "Ambassador, I think the more important question is whether you're prepared to discuss the fundamental assumptions that led to this conflict." I'm not certain I understand." Captain activated a holographic display that showed the current state of human space. Instead of the scattered colonies that Council intelligence had mapped, the display revealed an interconnected network spanning nearly a quarter of the galaxy. Defensive installations, industrial complexes, research facilities, and population centers existed in numbers that dwarfed every other species combined. The Council's intelligence networks identified human expansion based on visible colony signatures, explained. "You observed our civilian settlements and agricultural worlds, then extrapolated our total presence from those observations." Stared at the display in growing horror. "These additional installations, how long have they existed?" "The oldest human settlements outside Earth date back nearly 200 years. We've been expanding steadily while maintaining minimal observable signatures. What your intelligence services as recent expansion was actually just the portion we allowed you to see." The implications crashed through consciousness like a tidal wave. If humanity had been present in the galaxy for 2 centuries while maintaining near invisibility, it meant their technological capabilities had been advanced far longer than anyone had suspected. "Why," he whispered, "why hide such extensive presence?" Captain's expression grew serious. Because we studied the Council's history, Ambassador. We learned how you respond to species that develop too quickly or expand too efficiently. The Empire, the K Collective, the Synthesis Union, all eliminated or contained when they threatened the established order. Santeni drooped as he remembered those civilizations. Each had shown rapid technological advancement, each had expanded beyond acceptable parameters, and each had been systematically dismantled by Council intervention. The official records described these actions as maintaining galactic stability, but viewed from humanity's perspective, they revealed a pattern of suppressing potential competition. We were never expanding rapidly, continued. We were revealing ourselves gradually while preparing for the inevitable moment when the Council would decide we had grown too large to ignore. But the technologies you demonstrated, spatial manipulation, quantum communication, gravitational control, these represent centuries of advanced development. Actually, said with what might have been pride, they represent humanity's approach to survival preparation. When we realized that rapid technological advancement would mark us for elimination, we developed our capabilities in secret while projecting the image of conventional colonial expansion. The holographic display shifted to show human research facilities hidden within asteroid fields, manufacturing centers disguised as natural phenomena, and defensive installations that had operated undetected in supposedly empty space for decades. The scope of human preparation was breathtaking in its thoroughness. Every interaction between humanity and Council species has been carefully managed, explained. We've shared technologies that were already obsolete by our standards, participated in trade agreements that provided us with intelligence on Council capabilities, and maintained diplomatic relationships that gave us insight into Council decision-making processes. Felt his worldview crumbling around him. The humans we've interacted with, the ambassadors, the traders, the colonial administrators, all genuine representatives of humanity, but operating under specific protocols designed to present us as a developing rather than advanced species. Ambassador, who's negotiated several of our trade agreements, holds degrees in and strategic deception in addition to her diplomatic credentials. The depth of human preparation suggested a level of long-term planning that no Council species had ever achieved. They had essentially infiltrated galactic society while building defensive capabilities that rendered traditional military action useless. What happens now? Asked, dreading the answer. Before Captain could respond, the ship's communication system activated with an incoming transmission. The showed High Counselor, his crystalline exoskeleton showing stress fractures that indicated extreme agitation. Ambassador's voice carried barely controlled panic. Report your situation immediately. We've lost contact with the entire fleet. Looked at Captain, who nodded permission to respond. High Counselor, I am aboard a human vessel as their guest. The fleet has been neutralized. Neutralized? Explain immediately. Sir, human defensive capabilities were far beyond our intelligence estimates. The fleet was disabled without significant casualties, but our ships are non-functional. His exoskeleton shifted to deep red, indicating extreme anger. How many human ships participated in this engagement? Glanced at Captain again before answering. To my knowledge, sir, no human ships fired a single shot. The silence that followed stretched across interstellar space as processed this information. When he spoke again, his voice carried undertones of fear that had never heard from the ancient. That is impossible. A fleet of 347 warships cannot be neutralized without weapons fire. Captain gestured, and her image appeared alongside on the transmission. High Counselor, this is Captain. Ambassador is correct. Your fleet was disabled through spatial manipulation technologies rather than conventional weapons. All personnel are safe and will be returned to Council space. Captain replied, his voice tight with controlled rage. You are addressing the High Counselor of the Galactic Council. Your species will answer for this act of war. Actually, said calmly, the Council declared war on humanity. We simply responded to your military action with defensive measures. The real question is whether you're prepared to discuss peaceful coexistence or if you prefer to escalate this conflict. Peaceful coexistence. Your species has violated every territorial agreement and demonstrated military capabilities that threaten galactic stability. activated the holographic display again, this time showing the true extent of human presence alongside Council territories. High Counselor, humanity has existed alongside Council space for 2 centuries without violating a single territorial agreement. We've occupied unclaimed systems, developed previously uninhabitable worlds, and maintained peaceful relations with every species we've encountered. Your expansion threatens the natural order. The natural order, interrupted, that systematically eliminates species showing too much progress. High Counselor, we've studied the Council's history. 23 advanced civilizations have been contained or eliminated over the past millennium when they demonstrated capabilities that might threaten Council supremacy. Its exoskeleton shifted through several colors before settling on a deep blue that indicated uncertain contemplation. Those civilizations represented legitimate threats to galactic peace. They represented competition, corrected. And now you face a choice, High Counselor. Humanity has demonstrated that we cannot be eliminated through conventional military action. You can continue trying to suppress our development and face increasingly powerful defensive responses, or you can acknowledge that the galaxy is large enough for multiple advanced civilizations. The transmission showed consulting with other Council members who had joined the emergency session. Their agitated discussions created a cacophony of different languages and communication methods as the Council grappled with a situation they had never faced before. "What exactly are you proposing?" finally asked. "Recognition of humanity as an equal participant in galactic civilization," replied. "We're prepared to share our defensive technologies with Council species that face external threats, participate in expanded trade relationships, and contribute to genuine galactic peace. Your technologies represent a fundamental shift in the balance of power." "Yes," agreed. "Just as Council technologies represented a fundamental shift when your species achieved faster-than-light travel, energy weapons, and gravitational manipulation. The difference is that humanity developed these capabilities while facing the threat of systematic elimination." Ambassador watched the exchange with growing understanding. Humanity hadn't hidden their development out of deception, but out of necessity. They had learned to survive in a galactic community that destroyed potential competitors, and they had succeeded by appearing weak while becoming unimaginably strong. "High Counselor," interjected, "perhaps we should consider that humanity's approach to development represents a new model for galactic advancement. They've achieved unprecedented capabilities without conquering territory or eliminating competitors." "The voice their opinion?" asked coldly. "The voice the opinion of someone who has seen the full scope of human preparation," replied. "High Counselor, we attempted to eliminate them based on incomplete information. They responded with defensive measures that make our military obsolete. We can continue this path toward mutual destruction, or we can adapt to new realities." Captain added, "High Counselor, Admiral asked me to convey an offer. Humanity is willing to demonstrate our non-defensive technologies in a controlled environment. You'll see that our capabilities extend far beyond military applications." "What kind of demonstration?" "Terraforming technologies that can transform dead worlds into garden planets in decades rather than centuries. Medical technologies that can extend and improve quality of life for every Council species. Communication technologies that enable instantaneous contact across galactic distances. And manufacturing technologies that can create abundance without depleting natural resources." The offer hung in space between the 2 civilizations like a bridge across an impossible chasm. Council members on the transmission began animated discussions as they realized that humanity was offering to share technologies that could revolutionize galactic civilization. "Why would you offer such technologies to species that just attempted to destroy you?" asked suspiciously. "Because," Captain said with simple honesty, "humanity's primary goal has always been survival and prosperity. We've demonstrated that we cannot be eliminated. Now we're offering to help everyone prosper together rather than continuing a conflict that serves no one." The transmission ended with promising to reconvene the full Council for emergency deliberations. As the darkened, found himself in the strange position of hoping that the Council would choose wisdom over pride. "Captain," he said quietly, "what happens if the Council refuses your offer?" His expression grew thoughtful. Then humanity continues developing independently while maintaining our defensive posture. We've survived for 2 centuries under the threat of Council intervention. We can survive for 2 more if necessary. And if the Council accepts, then the galaxy enters a new era where advanced civilizations cooperate rather than compete for dominance. Humanity has always preferred that outcome, ambassador. The question is whether the Council can adapt to sharing power rather than concentrating it. As the UHS diplomatic resolution began its journey back to Council space, carrying survivors and the seeds of a transformed galactic order, contemplated the magnitude of humanity's achievement. They had not only survived the Council's attempt at elimination, they had revealed capabilities that made such attempts obsolete while offering to share those capabilities with their former enemies. The Council had declared war on humanity, believing they understood the extent of human development. They had learned instead that humanity's true strength lay not in their visible expansion or their hidden technologies, but in their ability to transform threats into opportunities for mutual advancement. Whether the galaxy would emerge from this crisis united or divided remained to be seen, but one thing was certain: the age of the Council's unquestioned dominance was over. Humanity had ensured that survival through adaptation rather than elimination would become the new standard for galactic civilization. The question was no longer whether humanity could defend themselves against the Council. The question was whether the Council could evolve beyond their need to suppress advanced civilizations and learn to coexist with species that might surpass their capabilities. In the vast emptiness of space, the answer to that question would determine the future of every species in the galaxy.